You've probably noticed it. The version of you that shows up with your parents isn't the version that shows up with your friends. The person you become at work disappears the moment you walk through your front door. And somewhere, late at night, you've asked yourself a quiet, uncomfortable question. Which one of these is actually me? If none of them feel completely real, what does that make you? Stay with that question, because by the end of this, you're going to understand something about yourself that most people never figure out, and it's going to change the way you see every relationship you have. Let's start with something that happens to almost everyone, but nobody really talks about. You're at a family dinner. Someone makes a comment. The old you, the teenage you, shows up out of nowhere. You shrink a little. You agree with things you don't actually believe. You laugh at jokes that aren't funny. 2 hours later, you're with your closest friend, and suddenly, you're sharper, funnier. You say what you actually think. You don't think twice before speaking. Same brain, same day. Two completely different people. And if you're someone who thinks deeply about yourself, which, if you're still watching, you probably are, this contrast doesn't just confuse you, it scares you a little, because somewhere along the way, you were taught that having one consistent self is what makes you trustworthy, authentic, real. So when you catch yourself shifting, softer here, louder there, smaller in one room and bigger in another, it doesn't feel like adapting. It feels like lying. Here's where most people get stuck. They start believing that one of these versions is the fake one, the real them buried beneath all these performances waiting to be uncovered. But that belief rests on a misunderstanding of how identity actually works. Your brain isn't designed to produce one fixed personality and replay it everywhere. It's designed to keep you safe and connected. And those two goals require completely different behavior depending on who's in front of you. This is called social mirroring, and it's not a flaw. It's wiring that's been in humans for thousands of years. Around people who feel safe, your nervous system relaxes. You take up space. You say the unfiltered thought. Around people who feel unpredictable, even slightly, your nervous system does something else entirely. It scans. It adjusts. It quietly asks, what does this person need from me right now to avoid conflict, rejection, or disappointment? You're not choosing this consciously. It's happening faster than conscious thought. It's protective. So that version of you that goes quiet around your dad, that's not weakness. That's a younger part of you that learned a long time ago that staying small was safer than being seen. And that version of you that comes alive around your best friend, that's not the real you either. That's simply what happens when your nervous system finally feels safe enough to stop monitoring. Neither one is fake. Both are real responses to real environments. Pause here for a second. Think about the last two people you were with today. How did your voice change? Your posture? The thoughts you let yourself say out loud versus the ones you swallowed? You weren't being dishonest in either moment. You were responding to two different emotional climates. This is where it gets deeper though, because adapting isn't the problem. Everyone does it. The problem starts when the gap between your versions gets too wide. When the work version of you and the real version of you have almost nothing in common. When you're so good at reading rooms that you've lost track of what you actually think when no one's watching. When you walk away from certain people feeling drained, not because they did anything wrong, but because you spent the whole conversation managing their perception of you instead of just existing. That's not flexibility anymore. That's disconnection. And here's the part that stings a little. A lot of people who seem the most easygoing, the most agreeable, the ones who get along with literally everyone, aren't actually relaxed. They're exhausted, because being liked by everyone often means being fully yourself with no one. Think about someone you know who seems to effortlessly fit into every group, funny with one crowd, serious with another, endlessly adaptable. Now ask yourself, have you ever seen that person actually disagree with someone? Actually say no? Actually let a silence sit instead of filling it to keep things comfortable? Often the most likable people are the ones who've gotten so good at shape-shifting that even they've forgotten what their original shape was. This is the twist most people never see coming. You don't become more authentic by acting the same with everyone. That's not authenticity. That's rigidity, and it usually comes from fear, not confidence. Real authenticity isn't about having one personality. It's about having one set of values that stays steady, even while your behavior naturally shifts. You can be quieter with your parents, parents and louder with your friends and still be authentic, as long as the quiet isn't self-erasure and the loud isn't a performance. The question was never, why do I act differently around different people? The real question is this: in each version of yourself, are you still choosing or are you disappearing? Because there's a difference between adapting and abandoning yourself. Adapting says, I will adjust how I express myself to fit this moment. Abandoning says, I will erase what I actually feel so this moment stays comfortable for someone else. One keeps your core intact, the other slowly empties it out. So here's something worth sitting with. You don't need to become one identical version of yourself in every room to finally feel real. You need to make sure that underneath every version, the quiet one, the loud one, the careful one, the playful one, there's still a you who's awake in there. Watching, choosing, not performing out of fear, but adapting out of intention. Because the goal was never to stop changing shape. The goal was to never lose yourself inside the shape you're wearing.